Holla ballers and a brofist to you all! Listen. Oh! Overnight I defeated it. I stood proud. Well, it's not defeated, but I can breathe again. It's awesome. It's amazing. I steamed my head. I went to the gym. They have a steam room. I was dying of plague, and I steamed my whole body for about 20 minutes, and everything left. I killed it over. I just boiled myself, essentially. I boiled myself. It was pretty cool. It was pretty good, and now I feel great. Awesome. Plague defeated. I'm still really obnoxiously hot, but whatever. We'll get by. We'll survive. Okay. Disc Priest guide. I didn't do one in 5.04 or 5.1 for various reasons, which I explained in the Holy Guide. However, I have done the Disc Priest guide today. I have. And that was my plan for the daily, was to discuss the Disc Priest and talk about it. I don't really like the Disc Priest. Never really have. Never cared for it. Always felt like a sort of Mongoloid spec. No offense to Disc Priest out there. It's just how I personally felt. It was kind of like a dribbly healer spec. But it was good. It was good. And maybe we will get to that. I'll see how we get on. Because some news came out which sort of threw me for a loop. And I still haven't really sort of, you know, got over it. I haven't really thought about it completely in my head. So hopefully my wonderful chat audience will be able to chip in where necessary. There is to be no more 5-man content whatsoever in Mists of Pandaria. No more. That's it. Whatever we've got is what we're getting. The 5-mans we started this expansion with are going to be the only ones. That's it. There's going to be no 5-mans whatsoever. There is likely to be a couple more scenarios. That's about it. And that's it. No more 5-man content whatsoever. Now, first of all, I was like, for a number of reasons. For personal reasons, I had the opportunity this time because I started this expansion doing what I do, which is mainly guides and all that kind of stuff for World of Warcraft. I had the wonderful opportunity to save my dinging gear. So I didn't disenchant it. On all the characters, and when I've replaced items, I haven't deleted them. What I did is I banked it all and saved it as a set, as like the bare minimum to get into a heroic set. And this is for a number of reasons, okay? This was for a number of reasons. Mainly, that when new 5-man content came out, I could simply put on my older gear and then give you guys sort of a confidence boost that you don't need to overgear it, this content's fine. I was more than confident that I could go in and do that. In fact, you'll remember in Cataclysm, I ran all the latest End Times, all the Hour of Twilight heroics. I did them in like ridiculously low item level on healers. Just to show you guys it was alright, because some of you were struggling. I was wearing like rocket packs, trinkets that gave like strength on the healers, all this kind of crazy stuff. And did it with barely any heals whatsoever, with any gear whatsoever. So I could show you guys that it was fine, and you can more than cope. And also it gives you a good chance to try out different ways of playing. That's not going to happen this time. I kind of prepared for it this time, and it's not going to happen. No new 5-man content. It's one of those changes that, from a business standpoint, if I put my business cap on for 5 minutes, makes perfect sense. It does. From a player standpoint, I don't like it. And it's a weird sort of contrast that's going on in my brain right now. The game is changing a lot. And we're all kind of struggling to keep up. This also kind of backs up the idea that at BlizzCon, we might see the announcement of the next expansion. Mists of Pandaria is kind of already running its course, if you believe the recent sort of developer updates. There's only a slight chance we will see a patch 5.5. If you follow the kind of ordinance that the patches go with, patch 5.3 should be a small one, probably new dailies, a scenario, something like that. And then patch 5.4 is going to be the Garrosh and final raid. That's it. They sort of like, they might not even be a 5.5 patch. We're just not going to see it. And at the rate these patches come out, we're likely to start seeing notes about 5.3 pretty soon. Pretty soon, and then obviously it'll be about 5.4. So BlizzCon is likely to be talking, there's a chance there, or a decent chance in my opinion, about the next expansion. Mists of Pandaria will be done with and that's it, it'll be out, it'll be gone. No more 5-man content. Why is this a good thing for business points of view? A lot of people only run 5-mans for the items. And of course, blue rewards very quickly get outdated by the monotonous, idiotic LFR. LFR is the place you go if you want some items on alts, if you want some on mains. If you're not raiding, you go to LFR. You don't run 5-man content for that. So from a business standpoint, it makes sense. If it's storytelling you want, scenarios are better. Scenarios are better at storytelling. They're much more involved, much more personal, and much more scripted, as they only have short combat sequences and then a lot of RP and stuff like that. The Vol'jin one is a great example. I have this question though. How many times have you guys run scenarios? On average, just a number. Do you run scenarios daily? How long do you think? Just a rough idea, a number. How many times have you run a scenario? Do you run them regularly? Do you run them not? I would say this. I did all the scenarios on beta once. Okay, so some numbers are flying in there. 15 a week, 20 in total, at least 50, Ali. 6 total, 2 total, 6 times 0, never. 5 to 10, 3, never. All of them once. Only when I can't be asked to do dungeons. 3, I've run 3 total, 2 total. Yeah, that's the kind of thing I was expecting to see. Now, how many times have you done 5-man dungeons? Just out of interest. How many times have you done 5-man dungeons? While that answer's coming in, I just want to say, scenarios, I said this in beta, that scenarios didn't feel like good content to me. They didn't. I said this as I was reviewing them. Thousands, 5 times a week, a lot, 100 plus, loads, lots of 5-mans, 3 to 5 a day. There's a dramatic difference, okay? You can see there is a dramatic difference in 5-mans. What I'm not going to say, because people will spam walls of text, maybe you can reply in the YouTube comments with this, is why such a difference? Why such a difference? Because obviously most of you, if you're doing that many, don't need the gear from there. You're running it for Valor points or whatever. Scenarios never felt like good content to me. They didn't. They were great the first time. That was what I got from scenarios. They were great the first time, kind of, but they were already kind of, oh, that's kind of fun. And that was all I got out of a scenario, was I ran a scenario and it was like, that's kind of fun, right? Do I want to do it again? Not really. Not really. I don't really want to do it again. Oh my god, I have to do Arena of Annihilation again. But that's not great. It's not fun. I do it for the quest to get a quick item. That's it. I get a guaranteed item. I like guaranteed items. That's the only reason. I think I've done Arena of Annihilation 3 times. I have 11 capped characters. I've done it 3 times total, including the beta. I've done it 3 times, right? The Vol'jin one, I would say, is the best scenario in the game right now. I've done it twice. That's it. I've done it twice. Why? Scenarios... No one ever speaks in scenarios. I don't know what it is about scenarios. It's just they don't feel like I'm doing anything. It feels like I'm watching an event. Sure, I cast some spells, I do some DPS, but overall, it's like doing the worst parts of a 5-man. That's how I feel about scenarios. They were never, to me, long-term content. I pointed this out months ago, is that I felt they were like, great first time. Great the first time, but I would never do them again. Unless there was some ridiculous reward, I wouldn't go in again. I wouldn't do that. I don't want to do that. The scenarios are kind of, oh, look, it's a monkey and I'm swinging on a line. That's kind of cool. But I don't really want to push beer around in my gameplay. I started thinking back to the 5-mans and the new content. We've made, Blizzard's made some good decisions and bad decisions with new 5-man content. I don't think the end time heroics were any good. I think that was a massive failure. Purely down to the fact that I could do what I did, which is heal a 5-man heroic, the latest one, in just no gear. I healed them fine. I had no issue with that whatsoever. I healed them without even trying, wearing fucking sombreros and hunting hats and rocket packs and all that kind of shit. So they weren't hard enough. The Zul'Gurub ones went the other way. They were really hard. They were. For 5-man content, the ZG and ZA were actually really hard, but way too long. The average ZA ZG run could take 40 minutes to an hour. Alright? They could. If you went with a pug, it's not, obviously I'm not talking about in organised guild groups. Organised guild groups just trolled their way through the fucking dungeons, obviously. But for the randoms in LFD, the ZG and ZA were too hard. A lot of people used to leave ZG. They didn't even know how to do it. Even with all the great optional extras that were in those dungeons. Collecting all the packs, the extra shards, crystals, all that kind of stuff was all inside those instances. People still just left if it was ZG. Especially ZG. They didn't like it. The first boss, so many wipes. Giant green lines of death, can't avoid them. But they broke up the monotony. They did. There's a few fears about this, because I think ICC actually did it really, really well. I can't recall ever getting bored of the ICC 5-mans. In fact, when I re-leveled the Monk, which is the only class I had to level from 0 again, I opened on the web show that I missed out on those heroics due to the item level restrictions. I could not go into Forge of Souls. I could not do Halls of Reflection. And I wanted to do them. Of course I did. I wanted to do them. I really, really did. Because I personally thought they were great. I probably ran those dungeons upwards of 100 plus times across many, many characters. They were great. They were really, really good. I was never bored in the Halls of Reflection. Never bored with Arthas chasing me. Sure, that kind of aspect can be added to a scenario. But now we're reducing the player size again. This is kind of the big idea. I understand why 5-mans are no longer necessary. Because if you want gear, you go to LFR. 5-mans are just a lot of content that needs to be designed, which gets outdated quickly. People either overgear it or they get the items and they don't go again. But that doesn't seem to happen with 5-mans. In fact, our chat has just proven that. 5-mans are something we enjoy. They're a nice, reasonable length. They're much longer than a scenario, but much shorter than LFR. It doesn't really matter what the rewards are because I kind of get to play around with my class in a fun, unique way that I can't do. A scenario, you can't really go balls to the wall against the boss. LFR, you don't really want to spend 40-45 minutes inside an LFR dealing with a lot of people that can wipe you. You don't want to do that. 5-mans are always a nice intermediary and a lot of fun that I have in WoW. In fact, the most funny things that I laugh at happen in 5-mans because there's that good combination of more than 3 people who never speak. 5-mans tend to get some little events going on that can only be caused by a few people being together. And that's always kind of fun for me anyway. I know a lot of people get pissed off with that, but these are my personal reasons. Yeah, I can solo scenarios. That's not fun. I totally agree. I never, yeah, PG Quick, all my PG Quickies, besides the one hero in LFR, have come from 5-mans. The funniest things we did on the live stream during February were in 5-mans. And they were a great time. I love 5-mans. But am I the dissenting opinion? If you follow the chat sort of registry, no. No, it's not the dissenting opinion. The 5-mans are actually quite fun. Mists of Pandaria, I think, in terms of comparison, has the worst 5-man content we have ever seen. Ever. I can't think of anything worse than Mists of Pandaria's current 5-man content. There was a lot of potential there for good 5-mans, but the 5-man content right now in Mists of Pandaria is awful. It's really, really bad. It is, if we compare it back into the past. It's the worst. Vanilla 5-mans were far better. Original Diamol. I know this isn't rose-tinted goggles. I'm talking purely from a content standpoint, okay? Really, really good, historically good 5-mans. We did. 5-man content was always kind of interesting. Only comparatively worse, I would say, is Wrath of the Lich King. But Wrath of the Lich King, again, was never designed to be run in a consistent manner. If we think about the original Wrath of the Lich King dungeons, I'm going to look like a complete retard now. Iron Cat, the one with the new Barak in it, terrible 5-man content. Halls of Lightning, Halls of Stone, all those were pretty bad, but they had a little bit of charm. Had a little bit of charm to them. Burning Crusade had notoriously good 5-mans that were also really challenging. Burning Crusade kind of hit the nail on the head. They really did, as the normal version was pretty good. But yeah, the old, Utgard, horrible. An interesting comment there is that Sholomance and Stratholme are my favourites. Doesn't that say a lot? That's revamped content. That's revamped content. And we're kind of in a Steam Vault's heart. Yeah, Steam Vault. Burning Crusade had the best, because they were hard if you wanted them to be. But even the normal versions were reasonably difficult to the point where you had to pay attention. And still good content. Great atmosphere. Great. I mean, the atmosphere that can be generated in a 5-man shits on scenarios. So far. For me, there's no scenario yet that can even come close to what we've seen in some 5-mans. Because you get to explore a new place, you open a new door, you go into a dungeon. But I'm not completely complaining. I'm not. This is an old sort of way of thinking, and Mists of Pandaria has moved away from this. Alts, it's not an alt-friendly expansion. Blizzard is definitely pushing us towards having a singular main character, and that's it. If you want to cap an alt on your head, be it, but you're going to suffer, and you're going to struggle, and you're going to have to invest a ton of time to get reasonably anywhere with that alt, unless you are powered by a huge guild, unless you can drop into the latest content very, very easily. If you're not in that position, or your guild doesn't run a lot of alt raids, because even the top guilds don't run a lot of alt raids unless they have to for raiding, then you're going to struggle. You're going to struggle. You're going to be doing twice as many dailies. You're going to be doing twice as much content, literally twice as much. Instead of just being sort of slightly behind, that's not the way it's going to go unless you are supported by a large guild. So we've definitely had this whole expansion edging us into a singular character. And long term, this is the only thing that really, really sort of worries me. Long term, it's another reduction in the amount of players we play with. The 40 to 25. The ultimate change to 15. We're pretty sure around maybe BlizzCon time when the new expansion comes out or is announced, we're going to see raid sizes move to 15. It's going to happen. They wanted to do it this expansion. They're certainly going to do it next expansion. It's just a guarantee that they're going to move to 15 man. That's going to happen and will probably be announced at BlizzCon. We're just reducing things down and we're moving away from the massively multiplayer side. You know, and that worries me because if this works out, and who's to complain? A lot of people have actually fervently supporting this idea of no new 5-mans. In fact, if you read the feedback, the consensus so far is this is a really, really good change. I personally don't agree, but I see the point. I totally see the point. I like new 5-mans. I look forward to doing a new 5-mans. I don't want 15-man. I don't want 15-man. Yeah, it's going to change. But people, you're going to go through a change, which is what happened to most of the older players when it went from 40 to 25. If you're in a 25-man guild right now and you feel like you're carrying a lot of players, say 10, 15-man sounds like the dream because you don't want to be 10-man. That's scrub territory. But moving down to 15 is a really, really good thing. In the short term, it is. In the short term, it feels that way because I did it. I was really happy we were going from 40 to 25, and now I absolutely regret it completely. Rose-tinted goggles, my ass. Horrible change. But that's the way it's going to do. No more 5-mans. No more 5-mans. No more 5-mans. This is... It took me aback. It wasn't something I predicted. In fact, as I said, I prepared my characters for the idea that there was going to be more 5-mans. How could there not be? Scenarios just aren't that popular, at least in my circle and audience size. They're just not. They're something we run to see the story. Oh, a Vol'jin scenario. We run it and we see the story and then never go back again. That's it. LFR? I would do anything not to go to LFR. I do LFR for my videos. That's it. Okay? I do LFRs to play with a bunch of people like you guys and do something like our DPS race or whatever it might be. I do LFR for videos to demonstrate something to you guys. Beyond that, fuck off. No, I don't want to do LFR. It's fucking atrocious. I wiped on Elgon 4 times today in 3 separate LFRs. 4 times. So many people just die because the floor is falling or something like that. And I don't want to be there. I don't enjoy it. I don't have fun. And especially when I'm trying to demonstrate something to you guys, I don't want to be there. I just don't want to be involved. It was just watching half the raid die is only funny the first time. And after that, I'm just not interested. I really don't care. Many of you do not like LFR. I know from my top end friends, they hate LFR because they run it to gear up and get Valor points. I hate Valor capping. It's what they tell me while they're studying LFR and they're killing the boss with 100k DPS pressing 1 button. Or they're doing 99% of the healing pressing 1 button. And they're there to get Valor points. LFR is a strange beast, but that's the way it's going. But what are we going to be left with is the ultimate thing. What are we going to be left with no new 5-man content? How would we fix this? The problem is, of course, they say nobody has a reason to go to LFR. Despite that, many of you do LFD every single day. Multiple times. Or 5 times a week. You do are looking for dungeon random heroic. Although they say there's no reason to go. Just like dailies aren't mandatory. Dailies aren't mandatory. All these kind of changes are pretty strange. So what could we do to fix that? I have no problem with new 5-man content that doesn't drop anything better than 463 gear. I really have no issue with that. I have no issue with that. Because surely there's designers who have an idea for a really great 5-man. Otherwise Halls of Reflection wouldn't exist. It's a wonderful 5-man. I don't go to 5-mans to get gear. Unless I've got a new alt. And then I leave it alone. I would like to see just new content thrown in there. Something interesting, something fun. And not scenarios where I do something for about 40% of the time. The rest of it is kind of a story. Or it's just Arena of Annihilation where it's boss after boss. No new 5-mans. I haven't decided whether it's a good or bad thing. I can't decide. You generally dislike 5-mans. Naked Raining. I did a 5-man with some people from Paragon. It was a good 5-man. Yeah. I don't do Dungeons anymore. LFR is more Valor about the same time. Is it about the same time? I find LFR to be quite a lot more longer. Quite a lot longer. I find it to be quite cool. Yeah, you can't rush scenarios, which is very boring. True, you can't just smash through them. They're not going to be 5... Yeah, there's no more 5-mans. There's no more 5-mans. To remove the near for gear boosting. What they don't want to do... Let's point out the obvious here. Why this is happening. There's only one fundamental reason why this is happening. So LFR does not become invalidated. Do you under no illusion that is why. If the new 5-mans drop better gear than LFR, why would you go to LFR? It's not to invalidate LFR. That's why this change is happening. That is it. Be all, end all. Be all, end all. LFR content already exists. They're not going to make more 5-mans. And I see some people mention challenge modes, and we're going to get no new challenge modes. The new challenge modes are going to be older content. You'll have challenge modes, previous content. Rehashed old content. Moved up to challenge mode HP levels. Why? It's extremely quick. Extremely quick to do is to just buff damage and buff health. They change it mid-fight. It's not that difficult to change. So your new challenge modes will be just old content. Let's wait for Ragefire Chasm challenge mode. It's going to be great. Ragefire Challenge. Ragefire Chasm challenge mode is going to be awesome. Exactly, like Baby Hercules just said there. If scenarios about the storytelling, what are 5-mans for? 5-mans tell a different kind of story, in my opinion. This is, again, attesting to what we've seen in the past. Scenarios do a fine job of telling the story, especially short segments of story with a little bit of atmosphere. Scenarios so far have generally involved an old piece of the world, not really that new. For me, I don't know, I'm getting kind of sentimental, but a 5-man, for me, I'm thinking back to the really good ones. I always felt much more atmospheric in a 5-man. 5-mans gave me a good reason to go again, to try things again. I have yet to see a scenario that has ever made me want to go there again to experience it. So far, if scenarios are to be the new way of playing very quickly with a group of people that isn't LFR, I have yet to see a scenario that has made me or let me think I wish to go back there. I've done them all. I thought they were okay. But yet to go back. 5-man's different. Mists of Pandaria 5-mans? Maybe not. What would I say is the best Mists of Pandaria 5-man? I would agree with the chat. Sholomance and Strathome. Oh, Sholomance, I should say. Sholomance. Scarlet Monastery? No. Scarlet Monastery? No. Sholomance? Definitely. I love the Sholomance 5-man. I think it's great. I think it's a great 5-man. It's wonderful. There's different mechanics in every single room. Very atmospheric. The old design of Sholomance is fucking wonderful. Absolutely wonderful look and feel to the whole place. I would say Sholomance is easily the best. It's rehashed old content. Which says a lot. It says a lot. It says a lot. It really, really does. The problem with scenarios is they're on rails. Quick time events. Essentially, a scenario is a quick time event. I think we'd be struggling to say they're not. Sure, we play our character a little bit in a scenario, but it's more of a quick time event taking place in a not so different world than we've already been to. Be it a cave, be it some Kunlai place, be it a little arena, all this kind of thing. I've yet to find that in a scenario. So if we're moving to scenarios, that could be what the problem is for me. That could be it. Is there a reason particularly I want to see more 5-man content? Not overly, other than I like new content, which isn't a strong argument. If we're moving towards scenarios for quick, easy content that doesn't involve us being in a raid with 24 people who could be the worst players imaginable, it's because I have yet to be enthralled by a scenario like I have been in a 5-man. Even some of the horrific 5-mans I actually find quite enjoyable, much better than a scenario. It could just be the fear that if we're moving to scenarios, that's what annoys me. That's what's getting me. Is that I just haven't enjoyed a scenario enough to want to do it again. I haven't enjoyed them enough. I haven't liked them enough. It's just simple that. I haven't done a scenario that I was like, ugh, that was really, really good. I want to do that again. I haven't had that yet. Where with the 5-man, I have. I wanted to do Gate of the Setting Sun again. I wanted to do other ones again. I wanted to do Sholomance again. I was more than fine with that. If it's just a case that I'm put off by the idea of doing more scenarios, or scenarios being sort of the staple way of doing small man content, and the idea that we're reducing the amount of players we play with long term. I'm talking expansion the next, and expansion after that if we just move to scenarios for little content and grab a little bit of gear. What we're likely to see is every expansion comes with its basic 5-mans to get you enough gear to start raiding or go into LFR, and that's it. And we won't see any more again. I don't like that. I like the occasional 5-man. And again, from a business point of view, it makes sense, but it's not always just about the business. Yesterday, Blizzard said their World of Warcraft team was bigger than it has ever been before. So far, what that huge, enormous team that is bigger than anything we've had before has produced is more dailies and a couple of raids, which have been relatively smaller than what we've seen in the past. Throne of Thunder's pretty large, given, granted. Terrace wasn't. Heart of Fear wasn't. Moksha Vaults definitely wasn't. And we've had more daily areas. And more dailies. And I'm kind of confused by this whole thing, unless they're working on the next expansion. Which is the only other thing I can think of. Our World of Warcraft team is enormous! They're working on the next expansion. That would make sense to me right now. Compared to the content we've had in the past, that's what I hear. That's what I hear. That's all it says to me in that kind of sentiment is, okay, you've got this enormous team. What are they doing? And it's kind of interesting. It's interesting. I still haven't, like I said, I still have not landed on my sort of final impression of this. At first I was like, and then I was like, okay, yeah, I can see why you're going with this. But if there's moved to a scenario, because they say there's no more 5-man dungeons planned for Mists of Pandaria. More scenarios are coming in future patches. We may see very challenging 3-player scenarios with pretty good rewards. So essentially, we're changing 5-mans to 3-man. Now, is this because of faster queue times? Get more players through the content quicker? Queue times are the worst thing about World of Warcraft right now for the general player base? Is that what we're saying? Is that the whole purpose of this is faster queue times so people don't have to wait anymore? Is that what we're talking about? Is that really the sort of state is better to drop it from 5 to 3? Are we likely not to see any more 5-mans in the game ever? Ask yourself that question. Is there likely to be no more 5-man content ever in World of Warcraft? Is the next expansion going to be 3-man and LFR? Is that likely to happen? It's a possibility. It's a possibility, isn't it? We need 5-mans. Well, actually, we don't. We don't need 5-mans. That's the whole point of this decision. We do not need 5-mans. I like 5-mans, though. But if no 5-mans, how do you learn to get good at tanking and 4 people to get an instant done? Every answer here can come from its LFR. Oh, you want to practice tanking? Now, personally, for someone who does the guides for World of Warcraft, LFR is terrible for learning how to do things like tanking and healing. They're atrocious. They are really bad examples of how to learn to tank and how to learn to heal, because you just do not deal with enough situations. You don't. You just do not. When people send me workshops of tanking, I say, send me a 5-man. Send me a 5-man of you tanking. Don't send me an LFR of you tanking. Unless it's some specific boss you're struggling with. Send me a 5-man, because I can see you do a million more things in a 5-man quickly than you can do in a dungeon, be it heroic, normal, or LFR. It doesn't matter. But again, that's the way it can go. Scenarios have much faster queues. People can queue as deeps. They can do whatever they want. This is the way it's going. The game is changing. And we all seem to need to keep up, or we need to go, which is interesting. And this is the first thing that's made me go, I'm not sure if I like this. I'm not sure if I like this. And I'm not sure if I look at this and look at where we could be in a year's time, is this still the game for me? I don't know. Because this hints to us reducing raid times, reducing player size, and trying to lump as many of you guys into the LFR scenario circle jerk as possible. And those of you who manage to pull yourself out and get into the raids, then you'll be fine. And that's kind of it's kind of interesting for me. I like a variety of content. Reducing the variety is kind of meh to me. I like running 5-mans with a few buddies. I don't like being limited to 3. I think 5's okay, but I've always had 5. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Maybe 3-mans will be better. But I like playing with a lot of people. You have to be careful with how many you play with. I like the idea of 10-mans in terms of content. If we're not going to have 5-mans, could we maybe get a couple of 10-mans? Maybe. I don't know. A little bit of Karazhan type stuff. Be interesting to see what comes next. Interesting to see what comes next. But this was a big piece of news. And as I say, I haven't really finished on a final answer. Do I like this or do I not? Long term, I can't see it pointing to anything good. I could see the next expansion being 3-mans. And then LFR. For the average player. Not to say I would be stuck in that. But I have to bear in mind that's what the majority of players are going to be doing. How does that affect detrimentally the quality of the player base? I think it does nothing but reduce it. Because now you're not getting that kind of practice or the limited amount of playability that you get in a 5-man. And we're just down to 3 and 25 for the majority of the player base. And that's kind of interesting. Kind of interesting. Okay, what are we talking about here? It's getting ridiculous. Nothing will be a challenge. Besides the challenge modes, they've already said they're putting more challenge modes in. Challenge modes are remarkably unused. There's no doubt about that. People don't like a challenge. People don't like it. They don't like it whatsoever. That's something we need to bear in mind as players, is the majority of the player base does not want a challenge. They don't. Something you kind of need to accept is a lot of players don't want a challenge. They really don't want a challenge. They don't like it, and they don't want it. Players who want to be better, which is what we... I mean, if we ask this audience, people want a challenge, but that's why you've kind of come here to try and be better, hopefully. That's why our community has grown in such a way. But the vast majority of players do not want a challenge. There was a reason ZG and ZA were unpopular. I personally found those instances remarkably easy. They were completely trivial to me, but you throw in some of the more casual players or the average player base, and they just couldn't handle it. They can't handle it at all. The classic content, like if we go back to the rose-tinted goggles of the Burning Crusade Heroics, they were hard, but I was okay with them. So for me, and for many of you guys now who've got better and started to understand how to really use your class in an appropriate way, even in PvE, the so-called easy mode, not really, as we know, you're starting to see and find ways around this. But that's not representative of the average player base, which is pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy. It's an interesting thing. We're going to see some more scenarios in terms of Varian's story. Can't wait for that. Can't wait for that. But yeah, big change this. This is actually a tiding of things to come. Tiding of things to come. I would be surprised if we're not going to see a reduction, or if no 5-mans at all next expansion. No 5-mans at all. And just 3-man scenarios with different difficulties. And then straight into LFR or whatever it might be. Yeah, pugging a challenge is terrible. Let's face facts. And that's because those people don't want the challenge. That's because the people you get randomly stuck with do not want the challenge. They don't like it. They don't want it. What is Ghostcrawler's unannounced feature? Does it have anything to do with no new 5-mans? No, the new feature hasn't been announced yet. But one thing I can sort of presume is I'm not going to try and predict what this mega insane new feature is going to be. We tried to do that with the 25-man change. And what we got was considerably worse than what we predicted. I think we predicted some pretty awesome things that could have really helped stimulate the 25-man community. And we didn't get anything like that. Thunderforged items, nobody's complaining, nobody cares. It just added extra layers of loot, which just annoys people who are looking for best in slot gear or whatever it might be. And so I don't think I'm going to invest time in trying to predict what the mega fix is going to be. Probably something cross-realm nonsense, or making things easier, making queues faster. There seems to be a huge thing about making queues faster so people aren't waiting around to get things done. It's kind of weird. There's a hotfix I want people to know about. I saw recently when I was online in the guild chat. I was practicing the Disc Priest today. I'm going to talk about Disc Priest on Thursday. The guide's coming out tomorrow and tonight. It's the big weekly video. It's coming out on... It's nearly finished. The big weekly video is coming out. I've got Disc Priest talents tonight. Gameplays tomorrow, which is Wednesday. So the big weekly video comes out on Thursday. And I'm live streaming on Friday, by the way. I'm live streaming on Friday all day from 9 a.m. I'll be live streaming on Friday after the big weekly video is finished. A lot of you are doing Undasta, the big badass boss, with like 100 and... I think someone in Stark was doing it with 120 people today. We're in the process of implementing a hotfix that will remove players' eligibility to receive loot from Undasta, the Star-Lord, if they are not from their home realm. It's kind of a big thing, is people are just forming massive, enormous, fucking mega raid groups just to kill the one boss, designed around 40 people, 120, 200 players attacking the boss and causing realms to crash, in fact, which is pretty crazy. I'm just seeing a message saying my internet has dropped. Now, is that true or not? Can anybody see me? Anybody? My chat died a minute ago. Oh, hello. Anybody? No. Okay. If you can see me right now, I'm told I have no internet connection. But my stream says it's still on. My stream says it's still on. Oh, I'm going to reload my chat. And if it's still down, I will assume I'm not offline. This is kind of an interesting thing about live streaming. I have no idea if I'm live right now. Isn't that cool? Isn't that the best? Server not found. But my viewer count is changing. Okay. I'm going to say this then. For those of you who can see me, those of you who can't, I'm going to end the daily there, because there's definite problems here, but I can see the viewer count changing, which is kind of interesting. So I'm going to call the daily there. It's Workshop Wednesday tomorrow. I'm live streaming on February, and I will see you guys then. Post some good comments about what you think about these changes. I am generally interested. All right, guys? I'll see you later.